Right now, in this exact moment, your mind is lying to you. There's a voice inside your head, subtle, persuasive, impossibly familiar, and it's telling you that you're not good enough, that you're falling behind, that everyone else is winning and you're losing. And the worst part? You believe it. You've been trained your entire life to listen to that voice, to argue with it, to negotiate with it, to give it an audience. But here's the truth. They never teach you. Toxic thoughts are not glitches. They're not mistakes, they're internal tyrants. They're ruthless dictators running a campaign inside your skull, and they only have power because you keep granting them consent. Every time you engage with them, you're voting them into office. Every time you ruminate, every time you catastrophize, every time you scroll through comparisons, you're signing their appointment letter. The mind betrays those who don't rule it. And right now, most people are not ruling their minds. They're being ruled by them. Type "I rule my mind" in the comments if you're ready to take back that power. But toxic thoughts aren't some mystical, unknowable force. They have a name. They have a shape. They have a pattern. Let me show you what you're actually fighting. First, there's jealousy. You see someone else's win and instantly your brain converts it into your loss. A colleague gets the promotion. A friend buys the house. Someone in your feed posts a vacation. And suddenly your mind doesn't celebrate them. It attacks you. It whispers, "You'll never get there. You're not special enough. You're running out of time." That sinking, persuasive voice, you know it. You've felt it 1,000 times. Then there's rumination. You replay a conversation from 3 years ago, a comment someone made, a decision you regret, and your mind circles it like a predator, picking at it, dissecting it, finding new ways to use it against you. What was a moment becomes a story. What was a story becomes an identity. And before you know it, you're the person who always messes up. You're the one who can't be trusted. That's not memory. That's sabotage. Then there's catastrophizing. You miss one deadline and your brain fast forwards to unemployment, poverty, homelessness, failure. A moment of fatigue becomes evidence that you're lazy. A single rejection becomes proof that you'll never succeed. Your mind takes one bad thread and weaves it into a full tapestry of doom. Here's the harsh truth that changes everything. These thoughts are not truths. They're tactics. They're strategies deployed by a part of your psychology that learned long ago that fear keeps you alive, that self-doubt keeps you cautious, that guilt keeps you compliant. Your mind evolved to protect you through worry, through shame, through self-attack. But that same mechanism that once kept you safe from physical danger is now keeping you imprisoned by invisible chains. And the cruelest part? You think you have to defeat these thoughts. You think you have to win the argument. But that's exactly what they want. Because every argument is an engagement. Every rebuttal is attention. Every counter-argument is fuel. This is where most people get it wrong. They think the problem is the toxic thoughts themselves, so they try to fight harder. They try to think positive thoughts. They try to rationalize their way out. But Machiavelli understood something crucial about power. Territory is gained through attention, not absence. A kingdom doesn't fall when you ignore its borders. It falls when you occupy them with a stronger force. Your toxic thoughts only have territory because you've granted them an audience. The moment you stop giving them your attention, they lose 90% of their power. And the moment you shift that attention elsewhere, they become completely irrelevant. This is the Machiavellian move, withdrawing consent. Most people think they have to defeat their thoughts, but that's not how power works. You don't defeat an opponent by fighting them on their turf. You defeat them by making the entire arena irrelevant. You starve them of the oxygen they need, and that oxygen is your attention. Every time your mind whispers a toxic message and you don't engage, you've weakened its grip. Every time you redirect your focus to something that demands action, you've taken back a piece of your kingdom. This isn't denial. This isn't positive thinking. This is ruthlessness. This is understanding that engagement is what these thoughts feed on and disengagement is what kills them. But here's where most self-help falls apart. Silence alone creates a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. If you simply stop engaging with toxic thoughts, but you don't fill that space with something stronger, something commanding, your mind will conjure something else to worry about. So the second part of this strategy is replacement. You must install stronger advisors. Not weaker replacements, stronger ones. If your mind wants to give you catastrophic scenarios, you give it a compelling project instead. If it wants to ruminate about the past, you give it a goal that demands your full presence in the present. If it wants to compare you to others, you give it a mission so clear, so personal, that comparison becomes meaningless. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise prince never rests except where necessity obliges him to rest." This is the principle. You keep your mind occupied with something of substance, something commanding, something that matters to you. The toxic thought says, "You're not good enough." Your response isn't to argue back. Your response is to turn toward your computer, your journal, your training, your work, something real that demands your attention. You say to your mind, "I hear you, and I have something to do." That's it. You don't convince yourself that the toxic thought is wrong. You simply appoint a regent, a stronger voice, a clearer directive that immediately occupies that space and renders the toxic message obsolete. The toxic thought tries to resurface an hour later, but you're in deep work, you're focused, you're unavailable, and it starves. Now, this works, but it only works if you know where the attacks are coming from. You need to become an archaeologist of your own weakness, a spy in your own life. You need to track the patterns. When do these toxic thoughts appear? Not the ones that come randomly. I'm talking about the ones that hit like clockwork, the ones with a trigger. For most people, it's fatigue. When you're tired, your filters drop, your patience evaporates, and suddenly, that self-doubt hits harder. That rumination feels more real. If you don't recognize this pattern, you'll attribute the thought to truth. But if you map it, you can interrupt it. You can recognize, "I'm tired. My mind is lying to me right now. I need rest, not rumination." For others, it's a comparison. They open social media and watch 5 minutes of curated wins, and suddenly, their own life feels small. The jealousy hits. The self-attack begins. But if you recognize this pattern, you can make a ruthless move. You remove the trigger. You delete the app. You set a boundary. You stop checking. That's not a weakness. That's power. For others, it's idle time. The moment you have nothing to do, nothing to focus on, your mind turns on you. Scrolling becomes an escape. Overthinking becomes the default. The toxic voice finds room to breathe. So the preemptive strike is simple. Never be idle. Fill that space first, deliberately, ruthlessly. Have a project, have a goal, have something your mind can sink its teeth into that's better than the garbage it would otherwise consume. But that's only half the battle. Because even if you recognize the patterns, if your environment is designed to activate them, you'll be swimming upstream. The modern world is built to trigger you. Notifications scream at you. Social media shows you your gaps. Your phone is engineered to hijack your attention. So you need to make a ruthless move, transform your environment into a fortress of focus. This isn't about motivation. Motivation is temporary. This is about structure. This is about making the right choice, the easy choice. First, strip your environment of unnecessary inputs. Remove notifications. Turn off your phone. Delete the apps that drain you. This seems simple, but most people won't do it because they fear missing out. But you won't miss out on anything that matters. The things that truly matter will find you. The things that matter less than your peace of mind and your focus, those are the things you need to cut. The fewer inputs fighting for your attention, the more attention you have for what actually serves you. Second, simplify your immediate surroundings. A cluttered desk creates a cluttered mind. Too many options create decision fatigue. Too many visual distractions create mental noise. Machiavelli understood that a palace must be designed to reflect power. Your workspace is your palace. Make it reflect focus. Keep it clean. Keep it simple. Make it an environment where your mind naturally gravitates toward depth instead of distraction. Third, shrink your circle. Not your friends necessarily, but your information circle. The people you follow, the voices you let into your head, the conversations you participate in. Most people are drowning in other people's problems, other people's opinions. other people's dramas, and they call it staying informed. But you're not staying informed, you're staying distracted. You're staying in a perpetual state of low-grade anxiety. So make a ruthless cut. Keep the voices that matter, cut the rest. Your environment is the law of your internal kingdom, and the law must serve focus. Now, let me give you the laws, the rules, the principles that, if you adopt them, will transform you from someone imprisoned by toxic thoughts into someone who rules their own mind. These aren't suggestions. These are the non-negotiables. First law, your mind is not your friend. It's a kingdom to be governed. Most people treat their thoughts like they're facts, like they're true. But your mind is a politician. It's constantly running a campaign to keep you in fear, to keep you safe from worry, to keep you compliant through shame. The moment you stop believing that your thoughts are the truth and start seeing them as signals, imperfect signals from an outdated operating system, everything changes. Your thought tells you that you're not good enough. That's not the truth. That's fear. That's your mind doing what it's been trained to do. Separate the signal from the truth. Dark psychology teaches us this. The mind is not your enemy, but it's also not your truth teller. It's something to be managed, understood, and directed. Once you accept this, you stop arguing with your thoughts. You manage them. Second law, attention is currency. You trade attention for reality. Whatever you pay attention to becomes your reality. If you pay attention to what you lack, lack becomes your reality. If you pay attention to your failures, failure becomes your reality. If you pay attention to everyone else's wins, inadequacy becomes your reality. But if you pay attention to what you're building, to your progress, to your actions, to your growth, that becomes your reality. Most people don't control their attention. Their attention is hijacked constantly. You must reclaim it, ruthlessly. Where your attention goes, your life follows. This is not motivational. This is mechanical. This is how the mind works. Third law, toxic thoughts thrive on engagement. Every argument you have with your thoughts gives them energy. Every time you try to convince yourself that you're okay when you don't believe it, you're in negotiation with tyranny. The tyrant gains power through negotiation. It gains power through debate. The move is a withdrawal. When the toxic thought arrives, you don't engage. You acknowledge it as what it is, a signal, not truth, and you redirect. You move, you act, you shift your attention. Engagement is the food that toxic thoughts live on. Starvation is the only language they understand. Fourth law, you cannot think your way out of a feeling you haven't acted your way into. You didn't become anxious through one thought. You became anxious through repeated patterns of avoidance, comparison, and rumination. You can't cure that with positive thinking. You cure it by doing the opposite of what fear commands. Fear says, don't talk to people. You talk to people. Fear says, this is too hard, give up. You push through. Fear says, you're not ready yet. You go anyway. Action rewires the nervous system. Action proves to your mind that you're capable. Action is the antidote to toxic thoughts, not more thinking. Fifth law, your environment will either support your discipline or destroy it. You cannot willpower your way out of a badly designed life. If you're surrounded by people who pull you down, you will go down. If you're in a space that's designed to distract you, you will be distracted. If you're consuming media that makes you feel small, you will feel small. You must make structural changes. Remove the friction from the right choices and add friction to the wrong ones. Make focus your default. Make distraction difficult. This is not motivation, this is design. This is a strategy. Sixth law, the identity you build through repeated action is stronger than any thought you could think. You don't become someone who's disciplined by deciding to be disciplined. You become disciplined by acting in disciplines repeatedly until it becomes who you are. You don't become someone who's focused by willing focus. You become focused by doing focused work repeatedly until focus becomes your identity. Your toxic mind has been telling you a story about who you are for years. You don't argue with that story. You overwrite it with action, with repetition, with a new narrative built through behavior, not through belief. The more you act like the person you want to become, the more you become that person. And once that's who you are, toxic thoughts become background noise. irrelevant to the story you're living. Seventh law, there will be days when discipline slips, when focus fractures, when old patterns creep back in. This is not failure. This is the rhythm of psychological change. What matters is what you do on that day. Do you compound the slip into a relapse? Or do you treat it as data and move forward? One missed day means nothing. 3 missed days mean a pattern is re-emerging. Catch it then. Correct it then. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are so simple and ready to obey." But he wasn't just talking about other people. He was talking about your own mind. Your mind is simple. If you treat a slip as a failure, it will compound into failure. If you treat it as an anomaly and immediately return to your protocol, it remains an anomaly. The discipline is not perfection. The discipline is the immediate correction. 8th law, beware of obsession dressed as discipline. When the mind transforms focus into obsession, when goals become prisons, when discipline becomes self-punishment, that's corruption. That's the machinery turning against you. Discipline is liberating. If what you're doing feels like torture, you've lost the point. The goal is not to become a machine. The goal is to become free enough that you can direct your own life. So build in integration, build in rest, build in genuine pleasure, build relationships. The strongest leaders are not the ones driven by pure will. They're the ones who have so thoroughly integrated their values into their identity that living them doesn't feel like a fight. It feels like freedom. That's what you're aiming for. That's the transformation. This is the final law, and it's the most important one. You are either ruling your mind or being ruled by it. There is no neutral ground. There is no coexistence. The toxic voice inside your head is not asking for a truce. It's running a campaign for total dominion. And that campaign only succeeds because most people surrender. They stop fighting. They accept the verdict the toxic voice delivers. But you don't have to. Every single day you get to make a choice. Every moment you get to choose whether you give that voice power or whether you withdraw it. That's not dramatic. That's the deepest truth of human psychology. The person who rules their own mind rules everything else. The person who's ruled by their own mind is imprisoned in everything else. So here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, implement this protocol. Strip your environment. Identify your triggers. When the toxic thought arrives, you don't argue with it. You acknowledge it. You redirect. You move toward action. You replace the void with something that demands your attention. You keep your mind occupied with something of substance. You do this daily, not perfectly, but consistently. And 30 days in, you'll notice something. The toxic voice doesn't hit as hard. It doesn't return as often. It doesn't feel as true. And that's not because you've defeated it. That's because you've starved it. You've withdrawn consent. You've become a ruler instead of a subject. This is not a self-help technique. This is a revolution in your own kingdom. This is taking back the territory of your mind that you've been surrendering for years. This is looking at the tyrant inside your head and saying, "Not today, not on my watch." If this video opened your eyes, if you're ready to take back your mind, drop an affirmation in the comments. Type, "I rule my kingdom," and let that be your declaration. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, because this is just the beginning of what you need to know about power, about psychology, about ruling yourself. The choice is yours. You can stay in that prison listening to the voice, or you can walk out. You can rule or be ruled. Make your choice now.